I want you to stop whatever you are doing for just a moment and ask yourself one question. Not about your bank account, not about your salary, not about how many hours you work or how many bills you have left unpaid. Just this one question. What is your relationship with money right now, at this very moment? Not what you wish it was, not what you are working toward right now. Because in 40 years of studying the ancient Jewish texts, the Talmud, the writings of the great Kabbalists, and sitting across from thousands of people who were either building wealth or wondering why it kept slipping through their fingers, I discovered something that most financial advisors will never tell you. The difference between people who accumulate wealth and people who spend their entire lives chasing it is almost never about income. It is almost never about strategy. It is almost never about how hard they work. It is about something far more fundamental. It is about how they think, and not just any thinking, a very specific pattern of thinking that the ancient rabbis identified and documented over 2,000 years ago, and that Jewish families have quietly passed down through generations ever since. In this video, I am going to reveal 5 signs that your mindset already matches this ancient Jewish wealth thinking. And I need you to pay very close attention to sign number 3, because when I explain it, most people have one of 2 reactions. They either feel a deep recognition, like something they always sensed but could never name, or they feel deeply uncomfortable because it challenges something they were taught their entire life about what it means to want more. Either reaction tells me something important about you, so stay with me, because by the time we reach sign number 5, you will understand your own relationship with money in a way you never have before. My name is Rabbi Eliyahu, and I want to tell you something before we begin. I did not grow up wealthy. My family had enough, but barely. And as a young man studying in the yeshiva in Jerusalem, I remember sitting across from my teacher, Rabbi Yitzhak Bloom of blessed memory, and asking him with genuine frustration, "Rabbi, I study the Torah. I observe the mitzvot. I pray every day. Why does money feel so difficult?" He looked at me for a long moment before answering, and what he said next I have repeated to thousands of people in the 4 decades since. He said, "Eliyahu, you are asking the wrong question. You are asking why money does not come to you. But the Torah does not ask that question. The Torah asks a different question entirely. It asks, who are you when money is nowhere near you? Because the answer to that question is the answer to yours." I did not understand him that day, but I do now, and you will too by the end of this video. Sign number 1. You define wealth differently than almost everyone around you. Most people define wealth as a number, a specific amount in a bank account, a salary figure, a net worth target. They say, when I have this much, I will be wealthy. I will be secure. I will finally be able to relax. This is one of the most documented patterns in modern behavioral economics, and it is also, word for word, the poverty consciousness that the Talmud warned against over 2,000 years ago. In Kohelet Rabbah, one of the ancient commentaries on the book of Ecclesiastes, the sages wrote something that stopped me cold the first time I read it. They wrote, "One who has 100 wants 200, and one who has 200 wants 400. Read that again. The amount does not matter. The wanting always expands to fill whatever space is available. The Talmud was describing what modern psychologists now call the hedonic treadmill. The faster you run toward a number, the further the number moves. But here is what most people miss. This is not a condemnation of ambition. The ancient rabbis were not telling people to stop striving. They were doing something far more sophisticated. They were identifying the difference between striving and chasing. A person who strives knows exactly why they want what they want. A person who chasing is running from something. And you cannot build lasting wealth while running away from something. The first sign that your mindset matches ancient Jewish wealth thinking is that you already sense this distinction. You already know, somewhere inside you, that wealth is not a number. It is a relationship. It is a state of being. And you have probably felt it in moments that surprised you. A time when you had less money than you have now, but felt genuinely richer. Or a time when you hit a financial goal, and instead of peace, felt only a new anxiety about the next goal. If you have ever felt that, you have touched the edge of what the ancient rabbis were teaching. And that is the first sign. Sign number 2, you treat money as a tool, not as a destination. There is a saying preserved in the Talmudic tradition that is so simple it almost sounds obvious. But do not let the simplicity fool you. The rabbis said, money is not sacred, and it is not an unattainable holy object. For 2,000 years, Jewish families raised their children on this idea. Money is a tool, like a hammer, like a knife, like fire, completely neutral in itself. What matters, entirely and without exception, is the hand that holds it and the intention behind the hand. Now, I want you to think about what this really means in practice, because in the culture most of us grew up in, money is almost never treated as neutral. It is either demonized, there is something spiritually dangerous about wanting money, or it is worshipped. Money is the ultimate measure of a person's worth and success. Neither of those positions allows you to think clearly about money. Neither allows you to make wise decisions. And both of them, the Talmud would say, are forms of poverty consciousness. Because if you fear money, you will unconsciously push it away. And if you worship money, you will unconsciously make choices that destroy it. The person who treats money as a tool does neither. They pick it up when they need it. They put it down when they do not. They use it purposefully. They do not confuse it with their identity or their worth. And here is the practical result of this mindset that most people never consider. When money is just a tool, you stop making emotional decisions with it. You stop spending it to feel better about yourself. You stop hoarding it out of fear. You stop lending it to people who drain it because you feel guilty saying no. You start using it with the same calm deliberateness that a craftsman uses his best tools. The Talmud in Tractate Bava Metzia records the ancient practice of dividing one's assets into 3 equal parts. 1/3 in land, 1/3 in merchandise, 1/3 kept in reserve. This was not a divine commandment. It was practical wisdom. It was the financial behavior of someone who sees money as a tool to be deployed thoughtfully, not a treasure to be accumulated desperately or a burden to be escaped. Sign number 3, and I promised you this one would be uncomfortable for some people. Sign number 3 is this: you are genuinely happy when other people prosper, not performing happiness, not saying the right words while feeling envy underneath. Genuinely, authentically, peacefully happy when someone around you succeeds financially. I know. Some of you just felt something tighten in your chest. Because we live in a culture that tells us wealth is a competition, that every dollar someone else has is somehow a dollar that could have been yours, that success is a limited resource. And if that belief lives inside you, even quietly, even unconsciously, it is one of the most powerful wealth-blocking forces in existence. The Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers, one of the most studied texts in all of rabbinic literature, asks a question that has been debated in yeshivas for centuries. Who is wealthy? The answer given by Ben Zoma, one of the great sages, is this: he who rejoices in his portion. Now, most people read this as a teaching about contentment, and it is. But the Kabbalists read it as something deeper. They said, the person who rejoices in his portion is also, necessarily, the person who can rejoice in someone else's portion. Because the belief that there is enough, that abundance is not finite, that someone else's wealth does not diminish your own, that belief is what opens the channels through which wealth flows. The Zohar, the central text of Kabbalah, teaches that the spiritual energy of abundance flows like water. Water always finds the lowest point. It flows downward and outward. It moves toward openness. The moment you close yourself with envy, with resentment, with the belief that what others have is somehow at your expense, you seal the channel. And water cannot flow into a sealed vessel. I have watched this principle work in the real world more times than I can count. The people in my community who genuinely celebrated the success of others, who told stories of friends getting promoted with real warmth in their voices, who attended the celebrations of others with open hearts. These were almost always the same people whose own financial situations improved most consistently over time. This is not magic. It is the practical psychology of abundance. When you believe there is enough, you see opportunities. When you believe wealth is scarce, you see competition. And you cannot build wealth while fighting competition you invented in your own mind. Sign number 4. You take the long view almost instinctively. There is a story in the Talmud that I have returned to dozens of times over the years because it captures something essential about Jewish wealth thinking. The story goes like this. The sage Honi was walking along a road when he saw an old man planting a carob tree. He stopped and asked the man, "How long will it take for this tree to bear fruit?" The man said, 70 years. Honi looked at him and said, "Do you really expect to live another 70 years to eat from this tree?" The old man looked back at him calmly and said, "I found this world with carob trees because my ancestors planted them for me. I am planting for my children, 70 years." This man was planting something he would never taste. And the Talmud records this story, not as a curiosity, but as a model of wisdom. Because the Jewish understanding of wealth has never been purely personal. It has always been generational. The great Jewish wealth principle of dor lador, generation to generation, is not just a phrase. It is a complete financial philosophy. When you think in generations rather than quarters, when you make decisions based on what they will mean in 30 years rather than 30 days, you automatically filter out the noise that destroys most people's finances. The impulsive purchase, the panic sale, the chasing of trends, the fear-driven decision that feels urgent in the moment and disastrous in retrospect. The person who takes the long view does not make those decisions, not because they are more disciplined, but because the question they are asking is fundamentally different. They are not asking, "How do I feel right now?" They are asking, "What am I building?" And that question, consistently applied, is one of the most powerful wealth-building forces that has ever existed. Sign number 5. And this is the one that I believe matters most. Sign number 5 is this: you understand, at a level deeper than words, that wealth is not what you own. It is what you share. The Talmud in Tractate Shabbat, chapter 119, records a discussion among the rabbis about why certain communities prospered while others struggled. The answer the Talmud gives is not what most people expect. It is not hard work. It is not intelligence. It is not strategy. The answer is tzedakah, giving. Now, before you dismiss this as religious sentiment, I want to give you the psychology behind it. Because the ancient rabbis were not naive. They were among the sharpest analytical minds in human history. And what they observed, across centuries and across communities, was a pattern so consistent that they encoded it as spiritual law. The people who gave, consistently and generously, from a place of genuine abundance rather than fear, were the same people around whom wealth accumulated and multiplied. Not because God was rewarding them, but because of something far more practical. A person who gives from abundance believes there is enough, and that belief, as we established in sign number 3, is the foundational condition for attracting more. A person who hoards from scarcity believes there is not enough, and that belief is self-fulfilling. It closes every door. It repels every opportunity. It poisons every relationship that could have been a channel of provision. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, one of the greatest Jewish thinkers of the 20th century, said something that I have never forgotten. He said, "Wealth is not what you own, it is what you share." 6 words, but they contain an entire philosophy of prosperity that the Jewish people have lived by for 3,000 years. And here is what I want to leave you with. You did not watch this video by accident. Something in you recognized these 5 signs before I even named them. The mindset was already there, waiting to be acknowledged, waiting to be lived more fully. The question is not whether you have the capacity for this way of thinking. You clearly do. The question is whether you are willing to let it guide your actual decisions, your actual relationship with money, your actual response the next time someone around you succeeds, your actual choice about whether to plant trees whose fruit you may never taste. That is where ancient Jewish wealth thinking becomes real, not in understanding it, in living it. If these teachings have opened something in you, I need you to do one thing right now. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. Every week I bring you teachings from the hidden depths of Jewish wisdom on money, prosperity, and the ancient laws that govern how wealth moves through the world. Teachings that most rabbis keep within the walls of the yeshiva. Teachings that Jewish families have whispered to their children for generations. Teachings that you now carry with you. Leave a comment below and write the 5 signs you just discovered. Write them out. Because the act of writing them is the act of claiming them, of saying, "This is how I think. This is who I am becoming." Share this video with someone in your life who is working hard and wondering why wealth keeps slipping away from them. Because sometimes one video, one teaching, one shift in understanding is all it takes. And hit the like button, because this ancient wisdom deserves to reach every person who is ready to receive it. I will close with a blessing. May you rejoice in your portion and in the portion of everyone around you. May you plant trees whose fruit your children will taste. May the wealth you share return to you multiplied beyond what you can imagine. May the channels of abundance in your life be open and clear and flowing. You already think this way, now live it. Shalom.